What's going on, Playdate community? I'm back with episode 2 of your tutorial series. Today we're going to learn how to make a very basic game using Playdate SPRITE. Let's get right into it. So first of all, you want to make sure you have your project set up. What I did is I went ahead and copied tutorial 1. You can work directly in tutorial 1 because we didn't really do anything there. You want to make sure that you have these two things, the .luarc.json file and the .vs code folder. So if you don't have those, go ahead and check for hidden files and everything. And once you have all of that ready, I went ahead and renamed my game, changed the description. Once you have that ready, you can just make sure that the Playdate debug actually works, which for me it does. If it doesn't for you, go back to the first tutorial, get your shit together, okay? Okay, so we're gonna jump right in. We're gonna learn how to use sprites in Lua. It's the most basic thing. They do everything. In a lot of other places, sprites are more just basically the idea of an image on screen. But in Playdate, they handle collisions. They handle all sorts of stuff. We're going to see some of what they do. So go ahead and get started. We're in the main.lua file. And underneath this import core libs object, you need to have that line, by the way. We're going to make a local reference. So local space GFX, open brackets, const equals playdate.graphics. So that's going to make a local reference to graphics, and we're going to make one to sprite just for consistency and faster. So we do local sprite, open brackets, const, close bracket, equals gfx.sprite. So those are our two references. It speeds up the game a little bit, speeds up our coding too, which is great. And now we're going to go ahead and create our sprite. So local my sprite, because we're not going to name it sprite, we're going to name it my sprite like every tutorial. And we're going to say equals sprite.new. And so here you can see that it's proposing to us, we can give it's suggesting we put an image or a tile map. You can create a sprite without an image, but then you have to go ahead and figure out how to put it on screen. You can draw on the image directly, but we're going to look at that later on. For now, what I've done is I've gone ahead and made a little spaceship for you guys. I went ahead and made this little spaceship for you guys. It honestly looks better than I expected. I thought it was going to look awful, but actually looks kind of decent. And it sort of looks like it has guns on the back. So let's figure out how we can turn that into a game functionality. So what we're going to do is that in source, we're going to create a file called assets. And then we're just going to dump our asset there. Ship PNG. There we go. So we've got assets and ship.png. So open brackets inside sprite.new / ship. No need to write .png. It knows what to look for. So above Playdate update, we're going to say function init, and then just go ahead and write end after that. And at the end of your file, you're going to write init. Okay, this is your Playdate.init function. It runs at the beginning of your game. It's more convenient to do it like that than to write all your code just sprawled out in the file. Go ahead and write my sprite : add, open close brackets. That's a function right there. That's going to add it to the screen. And then we're going to do my sprite dot move to, and we're going to put it to the middle of the screen. So that's 200, 120. That's the center of the screen. And inside Playdate.function, we're going to make sure that all our sprites get drawn. So we're going to do gfx.sprite. All right, I forgot how to do it, so we're going to do mysprite.draw. So guys, small tip. Anytime you're stuck, you want to go to this page right here. It's called Inside Playdate. It's the SDK. So just type in sdk.play.date. And this is where you have everything you need in order to develop games for the Playdate. Don't hesitate to ask questions on the forum or join in the Discord and ask questions inside the Lua channel or whatever language you're using, because that's going to be useful. But if you're in Lua, I recommend you always look up this page first before taking up other people's time. You'll also learn better if you know where to look when you're stuck. This is the entire documentation, so you'll find everything you need. So we do have to create a separate image we're going to get to. And we've got add and move to. And then you got a background drawing callback. You got some controls. GFX sprite update. That's it. Okay. You see how quick that was? See how easy that was? So we're going to go up here. We're going to go in local image equals, sorry, we're not going to name that image. We're going to call it my sprite image. And we're going to do, so gfx.image.new, and we're going to copy it, that path that we had below right there. And we're going to give in my sprite image. So by the way, you saw that that thing was being underlined before. We actually have a type checker. I didn't realize this, but we have a type checker that's supposed to tell us when something is wrong. So here we have a string clearly, because this is a string. And it's being assigned to something that's supposed to be an image or tile map. So pretty impressive, this Lua type system. It's not going to stop you from making a mistake, but it will warn you about it, which is pretty awesome. Global variable lowercase initial. Sure, let's add local function there just to clear out those errors. So we've got my sprite add, my sprite move to, perfect, and we're missing one, which is GFX. Sorry, we don't have GFX. Sprite dot update. And so if you use the dot instead of the colon, we're going to get into that in a second. But if you use the dot instead of the colon, that calls sprite update for every sprite in the game. If you use a colon, then it's actually the same function that's running in both cases, but you're passing in an argument, you're passing in sprite as the first argument. That's just how Lua works. So when you're doing object-oriented programming, you're better off using that colon because you're telling the function who's calling the function. Or else it doesn't know, which is stupid, but I know. Because in theory, what you could do is like this. I'm just going to do some Lua Kung Fu right here. We can do like this. Sprite add function equals my sprite dot add. Okay, what is this crazy stuff? And then in the init call, instead of calling my sprite add, we're going to call my sprite add function, which is actually a reference to the same function as what we just called. But the problem is this doesn't work if you don't give it a first argument, which is the sprite. So what we would do here is that we would take my sprite and we would go ahead and give it as the first argument. Doing this, we haven't changed anything. That's what's crazy. We haven't changed anything about the game. It'll still work. We can leave it like that if you want to. It's just way worse. But there sometimes are reasons to pull out functions locally. If you watch my Playdate series on Wheel Runner, you'll see that sometimes I do that to speed the game up. But when we're talking about this very small, I mean, sometimes it's just not worth it, let's just say. So here we're going to use my sprite dot colon add. And that's the same as doing my sprite dot add and, sorry, my sprite dot add and passing in my sprite as a first argument. So just, that's for your general knowledge. So in theory, we have everything here to see our little sprite on screen. So let's give it a shot. We're going to go ahead and press debug. And we've got our little shit. And it looks great. Guys, congratulations if you got until this point. We're going to add a little bit of controls. So, as you saw, they have a tutorial here with a move by, everything like that. It's too simple for us. We're going to go complicated. We're going to look up the crank, reading crank input. So we're going to get the crank position, playdate.get crank position. This is going to tell us, let's see. So this is all happening in the update function. Init only runs once. Update runs every frame, okay? So if your game is turning at 30 frames per second, it's going to run 30 times per second. If you do too many things inside update, it's going to be slower than that, as I know painfully from Wheel Runner. So we're going to go ahead and say local. So after sprite.update, we're going to say local crank position equals playdate.get crank position. Open close brackets because that's a function. And for now, we're just going to say print space crank position. Oh, sorry, it doesn't read that. Print open brackets crank position. And then we're going to go ahead and run that again. and see what happens. Let's go back here, and you can see that 0 is being printed out. And if we turn this thing on our simulator, you can see that we have a crank position in degrees, goes up to 360, and that's our crank position. So what do we do with this? We're gonna do a very, very simple rotation on our sprite. So we're gonna say my sprite dot set rotation. So this is what I mean. Sprites in Playdate actually handle stuff like rotation for you. You don't have to manipulate the image, which is great. And we're going to say crank position. So as you see, we have set rotation. You just give it an angle, and it takes in a scale. But we're not going to scale it here. We're just going to rotate it. So let's run that again. And as you can see, our little sprite is being rotated. You can tell that the rotation is not pixel perfect because it kind of gets weird and blurry as you move around. But for now, we're going to ignore that. It's just, you know, that's life. Yeah, you can tell that the pixel rotation is just not as good as it should be. And if we did rotation everywhere in our app with such pixel perfect sprites, it could look really bad and it could consume a lot of energy. So keep that in mind. For now, we're going to run with this. Let's see later down the line if we need to fix that. Great. So we've rotated. We have our sprite on screen. Let's get it moving. Okay. We're in the update function. If Playdate.a button held, then we're going to say, we don't have this yet. Actually, let's be clean. Let's assign it to my sprite. So for now, we can actually just... Lua tables are the most flexible thing in the world. You can just assign things where and when you want to. So we're going to go ahead and say, inside the init call, say my sprite dot velocity, and this is 0 or no. This is nil when you start off, but we're going to go ahead and say 0. Yeah, okay, so this is a warning. We're not going to... It's ugly what we're doing, but we're just going to run with it. My sprite.velocity equals 0. So if a button held, Playdate.a button held, then my sprite.velocity equals 5, okay? And then we're going to do another one, which is, this is at the bottom of the Playdate.update function, which is my sprite dot move by. So in order to get this movement, we're going to have to calculate the angle, because if we say move by velocity, which is fine, we can do that, it's actually going to move us in the x-axis or in the y-axis. Exception has occurred. I think I'm running a previous version of the SDK, guys, so it would be Playdate.button is pressed. If that previous one worked for you, that's great. Just run with it. If not, we have to type in Playdate button is pressed and then Playdate.kbutton. So that's the old school way of doing it. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this end statement. We're going to do else, and if we're not moving, then I'm going to do my sprite velocity equals 0 and then end. Then here, so here this isn't going to work. My sprite move by, first of all, we need to change this to a colon. Second of all, my sprite.velocity is just one number. So for example, if we give it a 0, we need to give 2 numbers here. So if we give it the velocity and then 0, you're going to see that basically if we press the A, then this little ship moves to the side, but there's no other buttons. So we want to use the crank to be able to direct where this ship is going. So what we're going to do, we're going to have to do some trigonometry. So first of all, if you want to use the math functions in Lua, you're going to have to convert to radians. I know it sucks, but if you're doing a bigger project and you're serious about using degrees, you can find a way to convert them automatically. I'll show you guys some other time. So here we're going to do crank position radians equals, and the function, so we're going to go into the math library, math dot, and we're simply going to say rad. Math dot rad, bro, crank position. So that's our radians for the position. Then we're going to say local vx, comma vy. So we're doing some pretty cool multiple assignment here. We're gonna say, so MySprite velocity, MySprite.velocity times, so v, x, and y, how does that work? Is that cosine and then sine? No, I think it's sine and then cosine. So sine of, math.sine dot open brackets crank position radians, comma, MySprite.velocity times math.cos, and then open brackets crank position radians. And then don't forget the MySprite colon move by needs a Vx and then a Vy. So we can try and run that, see whether it works. So let's point our ship, and it's moving, guys. Exciting. Look at that. Our little, oh, that's not normal. It's pointing to the side. I think I messed them up. Switch over the math and sine, cos and sine. I think my trig is not where it should be for this thing. Yep, okay, so it's cosine first and sine second. Perfect, guys. So we've got a little ship that moves around on screen. That's really cool. It's not really accelerating like Space Invaders, but let's run with it. We can maybe figure out the dynamics of how it should move later on. Second thing though, last thing though, let's make sure that when this little ship goes off screen, it appears on the other side, like Space Invaders. So for that, we're gonna say if MySprite.x is less than, let's say, -10, then we say MySprite colon move to, not move by. And let's see, what's the, we're gonna say 410, comma, MySprite.y. Okay, and we're going to do that same thing for all 4 different sides of the screen. So this one brings us from the left side to the right side. We're going to do the same thing for the other side, which is, so we're going to take this end and say else if, in the same word, MySprite.x is greater than 410, then MySprite move to, and we're going to say -10 MySprite.y. So we're not changing the y here. Else if, oh, actually this should be a separate conditional. So in case both happen at the same time. So we're going to type in and, skip to the next space. If MySprite.y is less than -10, then, oh, we're going to do the exact same logic, guys. MySprite colon move to, and here we're going to say MySprite.x, and then 250, which is the 10 past the end of the screen. And then we're going to say else if MySprite.y is greater than 250, then say MySprite.move to MySprite.x and -10. Perfect. Woo! That was a lot of logic, guys. Let's check if we got everything right there. So if greater than 410, less than 10. Okay, I think I'm feeling semi-confident in that. Let's see how it turns out on screen. Let's go ahead and press A. And guys, it works. Works like a charm. Look at that. Our little Space Invaders ship flies around on screen. Okay, I'm just gonna play with a game like this. I will see you guys in the next tutorial for the next part. Drop comments, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Also check out the blog posts, the forum posts, Reddit, Discord. Yeah, you can find me anywhere in the Playdate community. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.